Well, hello. I wanted to welcome you to my journey, if you will. Um, I thought that I should introduce myself, tell you a little bit about where I came from and all that stuff. You probably want to know a little bit about it, and I may tell you more than you want to know, but I ask if you could just be patient, and I think you'll find it worth the time. So anyway, I was born in December 5th, on December 5th, 1955 in Norwood, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston. My parents met in Boston at Shell Oil, and so they ended up getting married. We had four of us. By the time 4 years had passed. So somewhat typical for the time. We had just come off the war 10 years earlier, and a lot of things were changing, things were really booming. And my father decided to take a job up in Peterborough, New Hampshire, and we moved up there to Milford. We didn't go all the way to Peterborough. It would have been just a little bit too far for my mother's family to travel as often as they would like to come and see her. She was the oldest of 8, and so she had a sister that was 2. Anyway, so they would come and visit. But anyway, I was the one boy, and I was surrounded by 3 young girls. And they were really tight. So they didn't really want to have a lot to do with me. But that's changed at this point in our lives. But early on, they were very busy with their friends and everything else, and so I spent a lot of time alone, which I didn't mind. I mean, that was my world, and I spent time walking around in the woods, hiking in the woods at a very young age. And it was a small town. Milford at the time was about 5,000 people. I think it's maybe 3 times that now. And so, I would walk through the center of town, and I knew all the vendors. So, the shoe store, the barber, the bank, the meat shop, the hardware store was right there. It was just a really quaint town. And speaking of the hardware store, my neighbor owned the hardware store, and I spent a lot of time with him. In the sense that I would go over and talk to him, and he was very open to that kind of thing. And across the street was the town barber. So it was very interesting. So I spent a lot of time talking to older people, which is probably why I still like and enjoy hanging out and hearing their stories. So anyway, when I was, I don't know, I guess I was probably, when I first moved there, when I was 4 years old, a gentleman down the street came knocking on the door one day and asked my dad if it would be okay if I became their baseball team's bat boy. And I was excited about that, and my dad said yes. So by the time I was 5, I was playing baseball, organized baseball, and that carried on all through my high school years and everything I played for the high school. I really loved sports. I fell in love with sports, and that was great. That was all great. But when I was, so that was 4 years old, I started playing baseball, and then I was probably 8, 9 years old. I took over a paper route. Somebody asked me if I would take over the paper route. And so I did, and I did it for many years actually. I think I did it for about 5 years until I was 14. When I was 14, going on 15, I handed it down to a brother. But when I first started that paper route, this is getting to something. When I started that paper route, I would get paid. I made $12.50 carrying 52 papers 6 days a week and 78 papers on Thursdays. And for doing that, all that work, rain or shine or snow or whatever, I made those deliveries. I made $12.50. And in that $12.50, I would oftentimes get silver, silver dimes, silver quarters, silver half dollars, and silver dollars. There was still quite a bit of that floating around in the money supply. And by the time I got to the end of it, meaning 15 years old, 14, 15, I was 14 when I handed it over. When I was 15, I went to work in the summer on a dairy farm. But toward the latter years of the paper route, a lot of these coins went away. I was like, people run out of those, I don't see them anymore. Because I had become a coin collector because of it. I discovered there was a coin shop right next to the barber shop, in between the barber shop and the Milford Cooperative Bank. There was a coin store. So I became a collector at a very young age too. And I just remember thinking, where is all that going? And I think the coin collector guy, the guy that owned the store, he tried to explain to me, well, the federal government has changed a few things, and that's why you're seeing your quarters with that little clad around them and all that kind of stuff. And I never really quite understood what he was talking about. But when I moved here to Fairfield, Iowa, 19 years ago, one of my first friends here was very much into the history of economics and all this kind of stuff. And so I have discovered since that in 1971, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard and basically opened up the floodgates to money. And prior to that, and maybe even prior to that, we were running on what we would consider sound money. It was backed by something that people felt confident in, that it had value. And now we are running what they call Keynesian economics, where we are running with unsound money. It's fiat money, so it doesn't really have any value except the confidence in the people that are using it. Other than that, it's just a piece of paper. And the same with gold. Gold is just something that they felt had value because it was hard to duplicate. It was hard to mine it, so you couldn't overinflate it. You couldn't just keep printing it out. It was difficult to extract from the ground in the mining. And so that's how it had its value, and it still does today. There was a time when the banks, didn't really seem to care about the gold, but in the last recent years that have gone by, maybe the last 3 or 4 years, banks have begun to buy gold again and storing it up. That ought to tell you something. Anyway, so to get back to the whole saving thing, like I was saving money, and I remember getting like 5% interest on my money in the bank. I remember bringing my money in, and the president of the bank actually was the son of the barber who lived across the street from me, so I would see him on a personal basis. But he was very excited for me with the saving and everything and the coin collecting. But slowly but surely they stopped paying that 5%, and then it went to 4% and 3 and all, you know. And people stopped saving. And they said, well, now actually we're being told we should put our money into the stock market, which is not a bad place. You know, if you're well versed in how to manipulate, or not manipulate, sorry, that's the wrong word, but to be able to know how to read a stock, right? And whether it's a good investment or not. And then because people weren't that savvy, they used the tax code 401 and created these 401ks where people would put their money in and somebody else would manage it for them. And they'd have an array of different stocks within a 401k. So people started putting their money in there for retirement. And but there were certain rules that you had to agree with, and that one of them is that once you put the money in, you can't take it out without penalty. And that penalty right now is 10%. And if you, so you can't basically touch it until you're 59 and a half. Well, it's coming up on 3 years ago, I happened to take a trip to St. Augustine, Florida, and I went down there. I had gotten into the insurance business, and I went down to learn from a guy that was telling us, with the group that I was with, saying that he wanted to show us how we could help people get out of debt in 9 years or less. And so I get down there, and it turns out that this is a whole life policy that acts as a bank. About 40 years ago, Nelson Nash, who was an insurance salesperson at the time, he formulated it in his own mind that if the insurance companies were to open up the door a little wider on what they call a paid-up edition, a PUA, if they were to open it up a little bit more, they could reconfigure their products where they could accept more PUA, which is the cash value side of a policy. And so people could put their money there instead of putting it into the market. The 401ks are in the market. That's how they make money. So I just wanted to say right here quickly, thank you for hanging in there. I really want to share with you this concept, this tool. So there's the concept, and then there's a tool. So just hang in there and enjoy the second half. Thank you. That's what I discovered, was that there was this product called Whole Life, participating Whole Life, with a mutual insurance company. And inside of it, once you have your money in there, typically speaking, right now, today, they just changed some things in the life insurance business where they hadn't done it in many, many years. But we just had a big change, and the internal rate of return net, after all expenses, let's just say it's an average of 4%, which is considerable if it's compounding forever. Einstein, I think it was, that said that there was a phrase that he said, quote, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And he should have just finished that thought. Really, the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest that is uninterrupted. So, inside these policies, if you own one, which My wife and I own one, and I'm going to get one on myself here soon. And inside that policy, our money is growing as we make deposits. That money grows at approximately 4%, compounding uninterrupted forever. And after a short period of time, people can wait, but we didn't wait. We had some things we wanted to do. We were putting money in, and you can borrow against that money. So you're not actually taking it from the money that you're putting in. You're actually borrowing it against the insurance company. And we put up a new fence. We bought some gifts that we had wanted to do. We did a number of things. I think we've taken 10 different loans, and we paid them all back. We've taken some more after that, and we're paying them back. And we pay an interest rate to the insurance company of 5%, thereabouts. And but if we pay it all off, that goes away, but that compound interest has been happening all this time. It's very interesting. So now I go full circle that I have found a vehicle that the federal government isn't going to mess with, that I can forever be getting 4%, which I think is phenomenal. When you compare that to the savings account in a bank, it's considerably more. A CD, money market, all that stuff. And the thing to remember about with those is that even the interest you do get, that is taxed. Excuse me. That's taxed. So it's not all yours to begin with. But inside these policies, it grows and grows and grows with interest and dividend and all this. Because we're with a mutual insurance company, we are the owners of the insurance company, and therefore we are entitled to the dividends. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you that since I was a kid, I have wondered how come the banks and where could I put my money, aside from the stock market. Not everybody's built to be in the stock market, and I think I'm one of those people. I would rather have the cash available and make an investment or make an improvement on my home that is necessary, like a new roof on the front side of our house. Now, I did the back 3 years ago myself, but the front has a different pitch, and I don't want to get up there, so I'm going to hire somebody in the spring to come and do it, and we're going to take up money from the cash value of the policy, or again, we're going to borrow against it. So, and then pay it back, just like we would, if we had to go to the bank or use a credit card, you'd have to pay it back quickly or pay interest. So you still pay interest, but it's nowhere near like a credit card, and at least as good as probably a normal bank. Probably better for that kind of a home improvement. But anyway, this is really something that I never had heard about it. How come I'd never heard about it? I was in business back in New Hampshire before we moved to Iowa. I was in business here. I was around a lot of really sharp people. I was around people who were making a lot of money. No one ever mentioned this to me. But as soon as I discovered it, I also discovered how many people knew about this. Not a tremendous amount. There's a number of life insurance people sharing it, but people are a little skeptical because, like, why have I not heard about this? It's like a lot of things. I worked for a small company here in town. It is called the Sky Factory. I no longer work there, but great little company. Traveled all over the country for them. They go to trade shows around the world. So you'd think that after 20 years, a lot of people would know about them, but that's not true. sometimes even people right here in our own little town here don't know about it. So why wouldn't you hear about this awesome thing to do? I don't know. I think for me it was pure coincidence, and there are no coincidences, that I discovered it. And I'm so happy I did. Age doesn't have anything to do with it, because I can have a policy myself, and I will benefit from it. Maybe not as much as somebody that's 20 or 30 or even 40, but I can benefit from it, and I can share it with you so that you can benefit from it, if it's something you think that you would like to do or learn more about. So anyway, I would love to chat. If you want to just reach out anytime or not, or look at my videos, send me a question, whatever it is. Anyway, that's all for today. Sorry for the long one. Have a wonderful day, and we'll catch you next time.